Welcome back. And so telecom service providers this morning are probably heaving a sigh of relief following the decision of labor unions led by the NLC to suspend the planned protests against the impending and inevitable increase in telecommunications tariff. But, you know, that, as I said, is inevitable. It will eventually come. But what measure will it take and how will it be implemented? I guess, you know, those are the bigger concerns on the minds of particularly subscribers this morning. And that's why it's also important for us to have this conversation. So joining us this morning is Chief Adiolu Ogunbanjo. He's the National President, National Association of Telecom Subscribers, NATCOMS. He joins us here in our Lagos studio. And we also have Mr. Hamad Sajo, Public Affairs Analyst and the CEO, Future Now Initiative, who's joining us from our Abuja studio. Good morning, gentlemen, and thank you so much for coming through this morning.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, naturally, I'll start with you, Mr. Ogunbanjo. You are the President, National Association of Telecom Subscribers. And so the concern for most Nigerians is that 50% increase is rather high. So first of all, break that down for us. What is the implication of 50% increase if it were to be implemented without, well, supposedly with negotiations hitting a brick wall?
Thank you very much. You know, initially they did ask for, the telcos through Alton did ask for, 100%. Then the Honorable Minister Tijani did say, sorry, we will not grant you 100%, but we will tell you we will be given an increase. Then I think about January 7th, 8th, he now said, well, we will be given an increase, but may not be 100%. Then we felt it was 40. We were working on, 40, he said, and we even said that was high. So I think middle of January now said 50%, or was it Monday last week? Yes, Monday last week, now said 50%, which was rather too high. But the implication of that is everything that you are now doing will be 50% more. For instance, your SMS, your data costs, your everything on communication services. And apart from the basic needs, food, shelter, clothing, communication is next. It's now become part of the human being. So 50% is rather high.
Are you on that negotiating table? And if you are, I think Nigerians would like to know, so what's the implication of 50% in specificity now? Would it mean we can no longer purchase data for as low as 500 naira for a period? So what would be the minimum for both data, SMS, and calls?
Well, apparently, if, for instance, data costs is, let's look at an example. 1 gigabyte used to cost, let's say, 500 naira. It now means 1 gigabyte will now cost 750 naira. And that is rather much. Calls, again, will be higher. SMS from 4 naira to 6 naira. So if you look at that, the interplay of all that is increased costs of telecom services, which will lead to many other things rising up again in the market, because telecoms is not in isolation of other sectors. So it's a no-no for us, and we wouldn't want a situation where 50% increase will be what they want to now, impose on Nigerians. And that's why we did say, look, a 10% increase will be fine, plus other options, like the telecoms services, the telecoms sector is being owed, and they're also owing. So pay up this, particularly with the banks. The banks are stifling the telecoms industry. I mean, the telcos, they're not paying. But beyond that now is they are also owing themselves. You know, telco A is owing telco B. And if that is not enough, well, go to the stock market, do IPOs, I mean, initial public offers, and all that. And then plus the 10% increase, all that will, you know, sum up to the fact that we won't want a 10% increase. I mean, a 50% increase. 10% plus all these other options will be good.
Oh, well, a lot of revelations there. So even the telcos are also owing each other.
Precisely.
We'll explore that. But let me come to you, Mr. Sajo. And another issue that is at the heart of the matter here is the handling of the increase in planned increase in telecoms tariff by the handling by NLC and the other affiliate unions. Some would say that we've been rather hard on them on this side of the divide. But what are your thoughts on the NLC's handling of this?
Well, thank you very much. I think the first thing we have to consider is the fact that there's a lot of emotions in discussing this, and anybody can understand. We have to sympathize with ourselves. We're at a period where things are very hard, so any adjustment in tariffs in any sector would actually, you know, elicit a lot of emotional discussions. But I think we needed to have a more rational, you know, approach to this issue. The NLC did not address it the way they should have addressed it. Before even the NLC comes into the matter, the affiliate unions that work in the telecoms industry should have been able to engage Nigerians and explain some of these issues very deeply. Our concern, at least some of us, our concern is the fact that, you know, we are aware that the last time a tariff adjustment was made for the telecom industries was 2013. And we are also aware that between 2013 and today, a lot of things have gone, you know, one way or the other. The economy, you can easily understand that there are increases in inflationary figures. There are increases in costs of operational costs, including transportation, fuel, including some other the value of the naira to the dollar for foreign components and the rest. So if we look at all of this, what we are expecting experts or at least players in the field to tell us is that how much does it cost to provide 1 minute of a call? How much does it cost to provide 1 unit of data? If we know these costs, we will now know that whatever adjustments are made, whether they are actually cost reflective or they are not. We're looking at all of these things and then just going on a mass hysteria to say we're going to go on protest. Go on protest over what? Go on protest when you have not even explained to people what really went wrong. The service providers, it's a business. It's not a government enterprise. It's a business. If anybody can put his money into a business, the first thing he will consider is return on investment. And if the person tells you that, look, when I established this thing, or when there was an adjustment in 2013, the minimum wage, for example, was 30,000 naira. Today, the minimum wage is 70,000 naira. If I had refused to implement the minimum wage, I know labor will come after me. So there are other things to consider. I think these labor unions, especially the NLC, should begin to look at issues more rationally and more dispassionately than just looking at them as if, you know, it's always with mass hysteria. Where was labor when, you know, all these years that we're talking about local government autonomy? It's only Nolge that has been fighting for local government autonomy. That's a very strong one. Where was labor when pensioners are going onto the street and dying? Where is labor in a lot of other things that labor is supposed to wake up and protect workers first and foremost, and then Nigerian people if the situation so warrants. So I think Labour wanted to overshoot itself by saying they will protest over this issue. I think the best approach would have been and should be that let's all go around and discuss. I am sure the regulator, NCC, is not accepting a 50% tariff adjustment just because they want to punish Nigerians. They must have considered the interests of ordinary Nigerians in the process of determining. Just like my brother there said, the first request was for a 100% increase, and then the discussions resulted in a 50%.
All right, Mr. Sadler.
We can still discuss more if we so wish, but we cannot. You do not negotiate with somebody, with a threat. You do not say, I'm going to shut down the country. I'm going to go on a protest. I'm going to go on a strike.
All right, Mr. Sadler.
I mean, you want to negotiate with me on a threat? No. It's not a good method of negotiations. And I think that we need to listen to telecom operators.
Right.
We need to listen to players in the field. We need to listen to our the regulator, and then come out with a rational position on all of these things.
All right, Mr. Ogunbanjo, he's made some points, saying first, let's know how much it costs to provide the services. I don't know if that's something that has been in the conversation. I know for the electricity sector, for example, they had said, well, if this is how much it costs to generate 1 kilowatt hour or what have you, then this is how much it will cost, or this is how much we should charge. For the petroleum industry as well, I know there was that question around, for example, how much does Dangote's 1 liter cost? And some had said, well, that's his own private business. That's his, it's in his purview to either reveal or otherwise. But for the telecoms industry, is that a conversation we've had? Is that something that is clear such that we know if this is cost reflective or not? But also, are you disappointed that the NLC did not go through with this planned protest, which a lot of people saw as their someone speaking out for them finally, or taking action for them? So 2 questions in one.
The first one you did say was
whether or not we were clear on how much it really costs telcos to provide the services, such that we can say they can.
For instance, a 1-minute call, what does it cost? Because we are looking at the spectrum. I don't know, they've not really come out with costs per minute, except, the cap has been done by NCC, which has been since 2001, has been capped as 50 naira per minute. And then, like he did say, 2013, there was an increase, but from then, nothing was increased up till last week, Monday. To actually tell you the costs, I think they haven't worked that, except, what NCC has said, It's unlike other sectors, you have to, yes, they also must look at diesel costs, electricity costs, equipments, and all that. But the radio equipment costs, they put on their masks, all that, they haven't really come to tell us this is what it costs. Then we will now determine how much will be the add-on. Now, be that as it may, there is no way a businessman would not want to make profit. Yes, but for instance, like I did say earlier, 100% was being demanded for. There is nothing like excessive profit in business. Yeah. But consumers are saying there could be exploitative profit. If they have asked for 500%, I mean, they are in business to make money, to make profit. But that would be excessive. 50% that the NCC granted, we believe, is slightly exploitative.
So are you disappointed in the NLC for suspending this particular protest based on the intervention of government, the SGF, the ministers, and the regulators? Because a lot of people thought, finally someone's speaking out for us, particularly those who were not in support of this tariff hike. So Do you think Labour, again, put their foot off the pedal when they were meant to apply pressure, as some people will say?
Labour is having the knee-jerk approach. This is business. I mean, this is not a government thing. These are investors that have come to Nigeria to invest in the economy, and it should be treated as such. They are here for business, to invest and to have return on investments. A situation where they will be treated as if they are, a government-run establishment is a no-no. Labour, thank God the Secretary to the federal government intervened. Labour shouldn't have embarked on any strike of any sort or any protest of any sort.
They shouldn't have even thought about it or announced it.
At all.
So what more do they have? What more tool do they have then?
Labour. This is an increase in tariff due to operational costs. This is not negotiating for wages, for things like that. No, this is a business concern, it's a business enterprise, and it should be treated as such. I mean, the government is going up and down, trying to win investors. It will send wrong signals if, for instance, Labour now start to harass the telecoms industry by this sort of protest. It will scare investors. I mean, Labour shouldn't come in at all. And thank God for the intervention of the SGF.
Let's take it to Abuja studios. I don't know, for you, sir, what will be the fair percentage? Because he's saying here that 10% may be fair. They're asking for 100%. NCC has approved 50%. Now, the reason I ask, without defending them, they've talked about the issue of their property or their assets being destroyed or being affected, and they have to take responsibility for their assets. So, for context, when the transformer is being destroyed in areas, we all know most of the time is the people in the area that fix those transformers. But nobody comes to the aid of the telcos. They have to take care of their property. So they are calling on government to make it a national asset. So if you touch their asset, it becomes a national problem. They also talked about taxes and levies, over 60 of those taxes and levies, including affluent charges for smoke coming out of their generators. I think MTN reported a loss last year, and they were talking about FX liabilities in terms of leases and loans, and even the volatility of the FX for their operations. So there's a gamut of issues where they are making a case. So there is a case on the side of the consumers like us. There's also a case on the side of the business people like the telco. So what is fair in your books?
I want to tell you that I still stand by what I said earlier, that we cannot begin to rationalize the tariffs without understanding the real cost of the operations. I understand that before the NCC gave approval for this 50% tariff adjustment, the telcos had to provide documents to indicate their costs, per services rendered. Let me tell you, by 2013, when the current regime, the tariff regime, was empaneled, you could actually, understand that at that time, data services, for example, were almost marginal. What we had were just essentially calls and SMS. But today, data is key in the sense that it's affecting not just communications itself, but practically every aspect of our lives and livelihood. I wonder what the financial sector would have been for people who operate bank accounts and the rest, what it will be without the backbone of the telecoms in providing data. I wonder how many people in some of our rural areas would have operated POS if they cannot access data from the telcos. So as at the time this regime was put in place, the current tariff regime, the operations were not as robust as they are today. We did not even have enough smart devices to rely on this thing. So what we need to do is that if we really want to have a fair determination of what it will cost us to, to pay for these services, we must begin to converse around, getting the real cost of 1 minute of call or one text or 1 unit of data. But that, for me, that is even, I'm sure it's not the main issue. The main issue we should be discussing here, even as consumers of these services, including, of course, the enablements it gives us. Without the telecom services, probably I will not be communicating with you presently from Abuja in Lagos. We need a lot of internet backbone across the country to be able to do a lot of things. So what are we talking about? Whether there is going to be a tariff adjustment or not, what we should have been talking about at this point in time is what is in it for the consumer himself, for the person that consumes the services of the telcos. What is in it for them? How can we enhance the service and make it more efficient? How can we expand access? There are many areas. In Lagos and Abuja, we can sit comfortably and claim that the services are okay. But there are many areas that are underserved. What are we going to ask of the operators to ensure that they expand to all the underserved areas?
All right, Mr. Ahmad,
we need to look at
bring it back to,
beyond that.
My apologies. Let's bring it back to Lagos because of time. So I could same question to you, but I know you had proposed 10%. You've been in the rooms with this gentleman in terms of this negotiation. As he's talked about quality of service and all of that, that's another kettle of fish entirely. But right now, the argument is about the cost of operation and doing business. They've also made the argument as telcos that they buy parts in dollars and generate revenue in naira. So when you talk about those FX liabilities, those are where they're talking about an operational cost. Is it really fair to ask them for 10% increase given the environment they deal with? Because we need to be, the business has to be running for us to be able to do any other thing going forward. If it goes down, then this conversation is not important.
Yes, I must say that it is okay by saying they want to increase only by 10%, like we have said. But there are other ways to also raise funds. It is just, the easy way is double the, we're looking for 100%. There are other ways. Like I did say earlier, they are owing themselves. People are owing them as well. The banks are owing them. Then raise money. Nigerians want to invest as well. So bring in more money with a little increase. That's what we're saying. 10% is fine. They need funds to...
You're still going back to loans, though.
Sorry?
Because what you're saying is that they should go and get either direct loans or get equity. That's what you're saying to the stock market.
Go to the stock market, IPOs, initial public offerings. Do all that. If that is not enough, then you probably will now look at the 10%, the people who are owing them, make sure that they pay up, and then the intra-sectoral payment, debts, let them also do that. Then if that is not enough, then let us know if that is not enough. Then put cash on the table, and then we'll discuss.
Well, more importantly, the pressure of the amount that the banks are owing them, which is to the tune of 200 billion naira, and what IT firms are also owing banks on the other hand. If we broke those down, maybe I should take this now to Mr. Sajo. If we broke those figures down, is it not more impacting more on their service than what they would generate from an increase in electricity tariff? What I'm trying to say now is, if banks made up their commitments, to telcos and the payment of the USSD funds for the service fees for operations, wouldn't it impact more on the smooth running of the operations than wanting to take off, defray the cost of their service by increasing tariff on consumer subscribers now who are already overwhelmed with increase in pump price of petrol, commodities. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, let me tell you one very important thing. What basis are you going to use to determine whether the banks are going to pay this amount or that? It's based on the tariff. The tariff regime is the point at which you use, is the measurement you use in determining how much you owe anybody and how much anybody is going to pay you, including banks and other service providers. The important thing in it, like I keep emphasizing, is that there has to be a cost-reflective tariff, and that cost-reflective tariff must be based on the fact that what are the unit costs of providing the service, and then, of course, the consumer or the subscriber or the user of the services must also be given some incentive. What is in it for the user of the services? We need to discuss all of these things and look at it. But I think whether they get paid from the banks or they go to the stock market, and I think going to the stock market is even the weakest of it all, because people can only invest in your business if they know that there's going to be returns on investment. So the returns on investment is what really matters. So all the conversations, whether it is about tariff, whether it is about mopping up unpaid debt, whether it is everything, should be on the basis of determining what is going to be the return on investment. Because these people are private sector people. They're not government people. They're not going to operate because they have an obligation to the taxpayer. They have an obligation first and foremost to their investment. And so we need to agree that we have to take the discussion to the level at which we understand what is their operational cost. What does it take them to provide 1 minute of call? What does it take them to provide one unit of data? We need to go to that level. And then what are the guarantees they are going to put across for consumers if there's a cost-reflective tariff regime? What benefits are the consumers going to enjoy? And in any case, why are we not asking for even transparency in how the services are managed? So that we as consumers can also manage our utilization of their services in such a manner that we will not feel too hard. It will not be too hard on us. So there are a lot of conversations that should come around this issue of tariff adjustment that we are not even addressing, and so you cannot determine the cost, a fair cost of a fair tariff, unless you actually understand the cost. And I think the NCC must have been informed of all these things by the telcos for them to have approved whatever increase they have approved. But we are still on table.
And indeed, that's the kernel of the matter, Mr. Sajo. What indeed is coming to subscribers, particularly as it has to do with, the service provided by the telecoms service providers, drop calls, on delivered SMSs, purchase even of, credit through the banks, and then you don't get credited. We could go on and on, about data not pushing and all of that. So will this guarantee improved service delivery? It's an ongoing conversation, and that's why we must anchor at this point. And thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time on the program. We've been talking with Mr. Hamed Sajo, who joined us from our Abuja studio. He's a public affairs analyst and CEO of Future Now Initiative, and Chief Adeolu Ogunbanjo, the national president, National Association of Telecom Subscribers, NATCOMS. He's here in our Lagos studio. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure coming here.
And indeed, from the health of the telecom sector, we move on to the health sector this time around to look at a very important issue that affects a particular group of people within that sector. Stay with us for that very important conversation. We'll be right back.